What do you feel is the challenge?
Good afternoon, Chair Baldroff, members Garrett, Holmes, staff and guests. The lobbies are open and the recording has begun.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our first Cannabis Advisory Council meeting since I think before COVID. So I am happy to bring it back and to listen to the voices of people that are in the industry and for as the LCB, as we're moving forward and opening up new applications, and for the existing people that's in the industry to hear directly from you all firsthand of any pain points you're experiencing or things that LCB need to hear from you to think about as we're moving forward in this industry. I'm going to start with doing something a little different right quick. I hate that everybody's on one side and agency is on the other side. Mix around, change seats, mix around, because I want us to feel,
I'll just link it up.
I don't want,
Yeah,
I don't want us to feel like them, us, it's all of us.
We'll all.
I think it seems like ball move, Caitlin move. I think that's like half and half. If we all move, that would be fun.
Micah, don't start that.
So, before we do the introductions, what I want to do is go into talking about the agenda. And one of the things for the first meeting, I asked that all of the applicants, and I think it's 11 applicants that have come into the industry through social equity, to have, and I think we ended up with 7 or 8, to come and talk to us and tell us what their experience have been like, what it was like, and now that they're in the industry, what are they feeling? So we can hear directly from them. And then from there, I'm gonna go into staff. Justin is going to talk to us about 5206, 5403, because I've been getting emails from you all. You're interested in those, the signage, Larry's going to talk to us about the questions. Everyone is talking about their concerns to do with the labs. So we're going to talk about those things and just hear from you all. The selection of the Cannabis Advisory Council was made based on associations and licensee within association that's coming to represent the association. So I'm hoping for those of you that's not over the association, you all are going back and sharing these conversations that we're going to have when we have the meetings going forward, or hearing from your membership of things that they want you all to bring to us for these discussions and things. But the goal is for us to hear from community. With that, let's go around the room with introductions.
I'll start first.
Yes.
My name is PJ, represent Goliath Pines. Just there.
And push the mic, turn the mics on. Breathe, yeah.
Again, my name is PJ, represent Goliath Pines. Been with them since day one, looking for location and everything, but yeah.
Okay.
Good afternoon. I'm Lawrence Grant. I am the Enforcement and Education Director here at Liquor and Cannabis. Been with the agency about 6 months now.
And I'm Mark Webster. I'm the Legislative Director at the LCB. I've been here 2.5 years.
Hi, I'm Micah Sherman with the Sun and Craft Growers Association. I'm a licensee since 2014, producer processor here in Olympia.
Will Lucella, I'm the agency director for the LCB. I've been here 2 years.
It's going to feel like I've been here for a lifetime. So I'm Becky Smith. I'm the Director of Licensing and Regulations, and I've been with the agency since, well, about 14 years now, since the onset of cannabis.
I'm Justin Meyer. I'm social equity retailer for Tacoma Natural Care.
Kristen Haley, the Public Health Education Liaison here at Liquor Cannabis Board, and I've been here for about almost 2 years.
Hello, Caitlin Ryan. I'm the Executive Director for the Cannabis Alliance. The Cannabis Alliance is celebrating 10 years of an association. We represent licensees as well as patients and consumers. Under that broad umbrella, we're dedicated to the advancement of a vital, ethical, equitable, and sustainable cannabis industry, and all of our initiatives follow that guiding principle.
Hello, everyone. Sarah Oki, Research Program Manager for the Liquor and Cannabis Board, and I've been here for a little over 2 years.
Hello, Paul Bryce, retailer, social equity, also already existing license, Happy Trees since 2017.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Justin Nordhorn, I'm the Director of Policy and External Affairs for Liquor and Cannabis Board. I've been with the agency for 27 years.
And online, if you all want to introduce yourselves.
Hello, I'm Shay Hines. I'm here with WCLA. I'm one of the owners of Lux Pot Shop. We have a few stores in Seattle, and I've been in the 502 industry since the inception and medical before that.
Hi, I'm Samuel Ward. I'm with Cloud9 Cannabis. I've been with Cloud9 18, 19 months now. We've been open since last year.
I'm Greenfield Cannabis out in Moses Lake, Washington. We are a social equity licensed retailer as well, and we've been open since January 31st.
Amber?
Hi there, I'm Amber Vaughn with Terpene Transit. We've been rolling for about 8 years now. We do third-party delivery for Washington State cannabis licensees.
Hi, I'm Bree. I'm from WACA, the Washington Cannabis Business Association. I'm also a cannabis retailer from Agrino Today. Yeah, been doing this for, gosh, a little bit over a decade now.
Hi, my name is Bethany Rondo. I don't know if it's working.
It's working. We can hear you.
Okay. All right. Awesome. Hi, my name is Bethany Rondo, and I'm with Washington Cannabis Licensee Association. I'm the director as well. I've owned Falcana, which is a producer processor, and we've been in business since the inception of 502 and medical before that.
And I forgot to personally introduce my two fellow board members. I am so sorry. But Jim and Pete.
No worries. Thank you. Welcome, everybody. Just on behalf of the board, I'd also like to welcome you and thank you for your participation today. Jim Vollendroff, I've been on the board since May of 2022.
And I'm Pete. I'm the newest board member. I've been on the board for 6 whole months, and I'm really looking forward to hearing the council work today.
Did we get everyone online? Did we miss anyone? Okay. One of the things that just stood out to me, only 2 people that were here from the beginning of kicking off this industry that's still with the agency. So as you all see, with a lot of new people that have joined the agency since this industry has gotten going. And that's why I think it's very important that we all educate each other and take this opportunity to hear from each other and things. So we, as we going forward, understand what's going on in the industry. I did put the next agenda item, the social equity licensees, speaking in any order. I will go, who wants to go first? Or I call upon someone to go first to just share with us just what it's been like for you through this whole process from becoming a social equity license, getting going, finding a location, and now that you're open, what you're feeling. Who would like to go first?
I guess I'll go first.
Okay, you want to take the mic?
My name is PJ again, with Goliath Pines. We opened in February of this year. Finding a location was hard, obviously, with the city and getting all that set up, but we finally got it done. I also run another store in Walla Walla. That's not social equity. The owner I work for brought me on as a consultant as first and just have me running the store now. So I've been in the industry for a long time, since it first started in 2015. We've recently, or since opening, being that we're close to other dispensaries that have been there for a while and have multiple locations, when it comes to getting product, it's been very hard.
You're in Clark County?
Correct.
Okay.
Vancouver.
Vancouver, okay.
Yep. Being that we're close to these big dispensaries, some of these companies will not sell to us due to the bigger companies threatening that they will stop carrying in their locations. And so when I hear, well, you're only ordering 2 to 3 grand of products a month versus all of these stores who order maybe $20,000 to $30,000 worth of product a month, they have to decline our ordering. So it's not one company, it's a multiple of them. And keeping my ear to what's going on with other social equity license, I guess speaking for them as well, because a couple of them have the same issue in the Seattle area or wherever they're at. So I guess I'm just here to see if we can do something about that, or try to get something figured out. Just trying to get the products. It's just frustrating because some of these people know and like the product, so trying to help out a social equity license, they can't due to we having to. I mean, it's good that we're trying to help these other farms that are not in their store. People already like what they like, and they're already used to what they're getting. And if we can't get it in our location, then they just get it at the next location. So
Yeah,
that's basically why.
I think we've been hearing that quite a bit.
Okay.
That's what. So, but is it even more challenge? Because I've been hearing it from folks that's just been in the industry that's not social equity.
Exactly.
So you're saying, and for the social equity licensees, it's even more of a pain for you all that's just coming into the industry.
For sure.
Okay.
Yep. And then like they have events that were like it's called interchange or safety, meeting these events and going to these and having these bigger owners saying to producer processors like, hey, whatever you do, if you want your product in our shelf, you can't sell it to these people. And, I mean, there's it's just, from me saying it's just hearsay, but it's out there. And other stores like you were talking about that have been in the industry that are not social equity are feeling it as well. You got other companies buying other stores and the name that they have. So you have 10, 20 locations of this one name, and they're just hitting these companies like, hey, look, we have 20 stores. Are you going to sell to this mom and pop one next to me? Because if you are, then we won't get you in our 20 stores that we have. So that's just some of the stuff that we're dealing with, especially social equity license holders.
Who else? Who wants to go next?
I'll go.
Okay.
Just to feed off what he was saying, it is kind of hard because like,
Can you speak up a little louder? And then what store? Who?
Cloud9 Cannabis.
Okay.
Arlington, Washington. So just to feed off of him, it is kind of hard for the social equity stores because there are other stores that are reporting to the LCB about us, just complaining that said we're trying to lower our prices. What all we doing is, holiday deals like everybody else. Certain stores are telling certain farmers, we're not going to deal with you if they're going to deal with you because we're losing our customers, and which is everybody should come together, as a group, as bud tenders, it should be a family thing. But then to follow off with the funding situation, okay, you guys gave us some money, and that money was like, so we'll do the build out. We'll do the camera system. We have to have money, revenue for employees. You got to have money. It's what my rent is probably 12,000, 13,000 a month. Okay, and then you got to have money to fall off on in case something happens for insurance because we got robbed 2 times. The police don't do nothing about that. And then on top of that, it's like after we got the money for the revenue, the build out, the rent, the employees, and the money to fall off for insurance, now I have no money to buy products. So basically, I got my employees in the store selling air and water because we have no more money. There's not enough money for the funding. So it's a win. How are we supposed to win off? What are we getting from the program? So it's if you guys knew a lot more on the build out, the camera system, the funding for everybody, how much it costs for that, and then put that together, how much it costs for funding for product, 1.2 mil. That's what you're gonna spend, and then it's like if you don't have that 1.2 mil, then you got to have people that you trust to put that product in your store. Then you have to have certain times to pay them back. We don't have that. So where we go from if you say, hey, I'm a father with 8 kids. I've been taking care of 8 kids all my life. You know what I'm saying? I got in it at my Dennis is my business partner. He told me about this program, and I said, okay, let's enter it and see how it goes. And we entered it, and we out the gate, first place, open the store. It's hard to open it up, and then it's like, what am I doing now from here today? I took today off to take this meeting. I work at a restaurant. I wash dishes. I still wash dishes. I get child support taken out of my check. My checks are, I don't know if I had a check stub, I show you now, it's like $400. I have 8 kids to take care of. 1-bedroom apartment, $11.50 a month. So that's where I'm at in this program.
Thank you.
Hello, Paul Bryce, Happy Trees. Can I ask Ollie, what is the what is the goal here for this? Is this a one-time meeting thing, or what is the long play for?
No, this group will be having quarterly meetings.
Mhm.
And in hearing from you all and hearing what we're discussing here today, the LCB we want to come back and meet with each other to see out of some of these pain points or things that you all are throwing out that we are hearing, are there things that we can do and what that would look like if we could. Or what it would take. Is this something that has to go to the legislators or what? We just want to hear and then brainstorm within ourselves what we're hearing.
Gotcha.
But it will be quarterly meetings. After this meeting, going forward, it would be virtual, and it would be just this group. That's the reason it's going to be important for you all to go back to your associations and organizations and hear from them and bring their voice from the industry back to us.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, definitely feel privileged to be here. Been around the industry, even medical times, long time. So definitely feel like I'll have a lot to say as time goes. But opening, one of the toughest things is finding a good location, especially a location that's not in a already saturated area. Like our customers, they really go to who they trust and who they're comfortable with, and to get them to sway from one store to another, unless you're going to just drop the price out and make no money, it's a long just time of just being open till that one chance moment they decide to walk through your doors, and then you're hoping to then actually retain them as a customer. And one of the biggest problems for a new store opening is kind of like Sprite, best foot forward, or images, everything. You want to have the most inventory, a large selection, and you can't set up your store and have all this product when you don't have the sales to support the turnaround before stuff starts getting old. And so, I mean, you're troubled with trying to open up and represent a good quality store, and you don't have the sales to support it. And again, you don't have the customers that are supporting you yet, and they're really coming by to give that first little opportunity to check you out. And then if you lose right there, it could be another 6 months to a year before they decide to walk through your doors again. So being able to build out with your best foot forward, I think, is one of the biggest problems most of these people were challenged with, or one of the biggest things that anyone was challenged with.
So what I'm hearing and what I just heard from Sam is that once you all go through what you're going through to get open, get everything in place, there's no money for inventory to have a full show when people come in for the first time seeing. And
Absolutely not.
First impression is everything.
If we're talking about for the social equity monies, I mean, just to, we're all here because we just opened a store. Like anyone that opened up a half decent store will tell you it's all of 450,000, saying that you put 150 towards build out and the rest goes straight into inventory. Like you literally need a couple 100,000 at least, and that's still being modest, just to have a selection to compete with a nice quality average store. And then again, having that selection, the biggest problem is like the supposed commodity goods, like the dry goods, flour. They have a very short shelf life opposed to like the distillates, concentrates, and so forth. Same thing with edibles. Like we're trying to navigate what we think is going to be the best sellers or a good quality store, with also fighting or with also having the problem with returns, and because we're not meeting the amount of sales needed to really support the kind of product and inventory you're trying to bring in.
Okay. Sam, I saw your hand and I'm gonna come back to you, but I want to try to get to everyone. Michael up in Douglas County. Are you online? Because I want to see if it's depending on where locations, is it the same conversation or are there different things? And I don't want to hear just pain points. I want to hear successes. If there's successes, we want to hear those also.
Rolando Rodriguez. We are out in Moses Lake, Washington. So we are the social equity retailer for Grant County. Green Road Cannabis again, Rolando Rodriguez. I mean, I echo a lot of the pain points that the previous social equity retailers have mentioned. However, I will say it's been a rewarding experience for us in terms of opening a business and getting started. And right as we've opened, because we were very, very frugal. We did a lot of work on our own as well. But we were also fortunate. What we did is took some of the funds that were provided in the grant funds. Went out and hired someone that could help us because we thought someone in the industry that would have experience would give us the information we need and just kind of help us along as we built this business. We did do it independently. However, I will say, in echoing Mr. Bryce and the others that have gone earlier, by the time we got to opening date, there was no money for product. So what we had to do, again, we were just fortunate that we knew someone that provided a loan, and we are paying them back, obviously, as it's supposed to be. But what I will say is, as we got open and started seeing some success, then we see the large chain store come in, even to Grant County, and now we're seeing the effects of it because they've come in, they've kind of kept this, they've rebranded, I guess. And what they're doing now is they come in and see who we have as product, and then they just turn around, bring them on, and sell them at 50% off. And it's hard for us to compete like that because, again, we're, just as we got open and started seeing some success, and there are some great things about this program, and there are some pain points. But what I can say is right when this program looked like it was working, we then get the effects of the larger corp coming in, opening up. And, it's one thing to have, different retailers in the same area. It's another to maliciously go after the other ones that are already open. So, I can speak to more experience and answer any questions, but what I can say is, there are opportunities for this program to succeed and do well. I think there's differences in location as well. Our rent for our lease for our location is nowhere near as high as some of them that I'm hearing on the west side. So that's something to consider as well. That, inequity when it does exist from the west side to the east side, just in cost and getting started as well. But one thing we did have to do was be very frugal and do a lot of the work on our own. We had to do a lot of the demolition on the building, a lot of the painting and the carpets. We had to do a lot of things on our own. So, and I can say it to this point, I also still have a full-time job on the side that I need to go to because, we're not making enough for me to pay ourselves, but we need to maintain our jobs because it is expensive running and maintaining the store.
Thank you. Do we have online? I don't know who's online and who's in the room for sure. So we've had Paul, Lucky Leaf, Franklin, or in Franklin County. Are you online? Are they online? They're not online. Who else is online? We've heard from Sam. Okay. Okay. I just wanted to make sure that
I am Justin Meyer. I represent Natural Care in Tacoma, Washington. So we're talking about, I guess, the struggles and successes of opening a social equity store. With that being said, you guys have a lot of time. No, it was a pretty big struggle, and to navigate it all, it almost had to be a science on my part. Going from a full-time job and doing doing some of the other stuff that I hear people do about doing their own work, their build out and stuff to cut costs down, so we can have that extra money to try to get product in our stores. One of the biggest things for me, and that I'm hearing from other social equity retailers that I talk to, is definitely location, right? We're coming into this industry late in the game, and most of the locations, successful ones, high traffic areas are taken up. So it's really, and the way that the cities and counties set up zoning, they only allow, so many per area. So it's really hard to find somewhere that is available. And if it is, the rents are usually jacked up for a lot of people. I was really fortunate that I started out looking at locations back when I-502 first started, and I kind of knew the area pretty well, and I had been looking for years. But that was one of the main problems in transitioning from everyday work to try to fit in the time to put this stuff together was really tough. And I think that's the same thing for a lot of people. We all live everyday lives. We're starting new careers, right? And that's a tough thing to hone in on. That was just the part of getting to where I'm at now and being open. Once the doors are open, then there is the issue with, where are you going to get the money for your product? I mean, there's a lot of people out there offering loans and stuff, but with that, you're giving up a portion of your business almost. A lot of these are, you're not going to get a cannabis loan from a bank, any bank, and especially on a pending license. So, it was really hard to fill the shelves, and, I've been fortunate. I started out with I had $17,000 in savings, and that's what I started with. And today I've almost have full shelves, and my sales are going up little by little every month. It's a lot of hard work. I've worked every single day for 7 months since the doors have opened. I'll leave here and go back and do the same thing over again. It's a lot of hard work, and stuff. I think a lot of the hurdles are that I came across were with just, I'm not going to say the liquor control board was awesome as far as they were helping with, but like with the whole Department of Commerce, just the changing I guess the changing finish line for like how the program kept changing as far as the grant money and stuff go. And I felt like if there was more transparency about how it was going to go, and it just stayed that way, it would have been easier, and it would be easier for everyone else going forward. Because it's hard when you make a plan and you want to stick to it, and you're going for the finish line, and the route keeps changing. Especially for people who are trying to navigate, like, trying to transition from another job and like all these other different moving parts, and then the finish line keeps changing, or the route keeps changing on the way there. It's pretty difficult, and I've seen a lot of people get tripped up in that. I almost got tripped up. So I think like if the Liquor and Control Board and Department of Commerce could like come together and maybe work together more on how there could be a set, I don't know, maybe a set goal, not a set goal, but like step-by-step direction, like that doesn't change in the process. That would be more helpful in the future for future social equity people and people even moving forward at this point. If there's another thing, like if there's any way that if zoning could possibly change, or not zoning, but like restrictions. I mean, that would open up more space for people, for social equity or people coming into the industry. I don't know. I have seen the problems with I guess vendors and farms and stuff. You know, I definitely can't buy in high volume, so I don't get like discounts or anything. I don't have 5 stores. I don't have 10 stores. It's like, you know, I'm doing little tiny orders. Sometimes it's hard to get people to bring a little order to your store, you know? So, you know, you kind of gotta, at this point when we're coming in, we gotta just kind of take what we can get, and work with it. I don't know. I guess those are some of the issues. I'm sure there's tons of other issues. Just like I said, like the goal, like I know when I came in, I got my medical certification, like the whole medical thing changed. I learned how to make cars. I learned how to do everything with DOH. Then that changed. Then the liquor control board like set up a new portal, and that changed like the way we submit paperwork. So I'm learning something, then unlearning it, then learning it again. And it's like not just one, but it's like all these different avenues, and it's kind of difficult. But if there could just be consistency and transparency, that'd be probably like the most helpful thing, I guess. Yeah, just I think that's probably about it. I mean, I could probably go on, but I'll just leave it there and let someone else talk. Thank you.
Okay, online, who did I miss? Main Street, are you online? Lucky Leaf? It's Lucky Leaf. I called them already. Spooner has signed up, right? Okay. Anyone else that I'm missing? So we've heard from everyone. Okay, so Sam, you had your hand up and I said I would get back to you.
Yeah, I was basically feeding off the was in that location part. It's kind of tough too because we don't get to pick where you know what city or where we put our store and our location at. My store is all the way in Arlington, Washington. I stay in Spokane, Washington, so every time I have to go to my store to check on my employees or even to come out there for meetings or interchange, you know, I take time out of my hours and my days from my work and my kids to drive all the way to Seattle and back. So location is a big thing too.
Okay. Thank you all. Oh, yes.
Just to piggyback off of what he was saying, I know I said I work for Goliath Pines. I'm also a social equity license holder. My county is Cowlitz County. I've been trying for the last 2.5 years trying to get a location, but some of the cities there won't allow it, or a city is already at max capacity. So just me sitting on this license for that long. And that's why I just took this job on helping the owner I work for get the location and the whole build out and everything. So that way, when I do open my location up, I know already what to do and what not to do. So as a social equity license holder as well, is there a way we can do something with vertical integration, excise tax exemption, zone reduction? Because I'm hearing a lot of other states are already allowing vertical integration. And I was just wondering if we can be on that same level as well. As he was saying, some of these companies that we order from, they want a $1,000 minimum order or a $1,500 minimum order. And some of us that are low social equity can't even get that. So sometimes I even go pick up these orders from these companies. And it just takes out time of my day to go do all that and bringing it back to the shop and just a little bit of, I mean, I know we got to help with these grants and everything, but I mean, just a little bit extra is all we're asking, if not. But mainly those three things is that vertical integration, excise tax exemption, and zone reduction, especially that zone reduction. We've got other bigger stores already got a good location. And maybe with that zone reduction, we can try to get a better spot, especially maybe asking some of these cities that are not allowing, if they can allow a social equity license store in their town. I've been to a couple of locations, not a couple, but a lot in the Cowlitz County, and they just won't allow it. So if there's a way the state can help us ask these cities that, hey, can you let at least one or two social equity licenses in there? That'd be great. Thank you.
And how about, yes,
There's Nicole from Mountain High Cannabis.
okay, Nicole? Did she just come on so that she has no idea what we're doing? Or was she
I don't
on
know
all
when-
along?
I'm not sure what time she came on, but I
Okay,
just
'cause-
saw it refresh.
Here.
Yeah, she should have access.
And I'll come back to you, but I want to follow up and let Becky, putting you on the spot, talk about to address what you just brought up and what we have been doing and trying to do with the other municipalities.
So I appreciate the information, but it is something that we've heard consistently throughout the time that I've been here, but especially for social equity applicants that I'm sure both of you or most of you have spoken with or heard of Aaron Washington. He's our social equity manager. His team has done a fantastic job, I will say, of trying to move our local authorities to allow for retailers, and especially for retailers for social equity, that they've met with folks that we've seen. Pacific County has lifted their ban. So we've seen some movement, not enough, right? So we're also just recently been able to, I guess they've accepted our invitation with the Washington.
Association of Washington Cities.
Yep, the Association of Washington Cities has been meeting with us, and that's a big move for us because that for some of these counties, especially east of the mountains, that they're not so kind to having any new retailers, or and even some of our cities like Bellevue and Renton, where we have limits on the number of retailers that can set up shops. So we're constantly having conversations with these folks. We meet now with AWC every month and trying to get movement from the cities and the local the cities and towns and jurisdictions. We get invited to quite a few town halls. We're sharing with them, like, this is what you can get if you allow for a social equity applicant or any retailer to come into your city or town. That the taxes that it brings in, that the help that you can get, and we provide that information so they can see what maybe lifting that ban or moratorium will do. Again, we feel like even some movement is movement, but we're certainly not getting the movement that we would hope to have seen by now. And I just will have to say that all the struggles that you guys are sharing are things that we have heard consistently from other social equity applicants that are out there, that to have 11 right now that are licensed is great, but it's not enough for all of those folks that are still looking for places to locations. But we are doing our due diligence. We are having phone calls, going to meetings, sending letters, that staff are always on the phone trying to get movement.
Would you say in the last 2.5 years, there's been a bigger push on it or?
Yes, I would. Absolutely will say in the last 2.5 years that we've focused on it. When social equity, the retailers came, that came on board because we knew that some of the struggles were going to be finding locations, finding good locations that you're, joining the system that's already set up. Right. Those folks have been there in retailers for some time now. So we knew from the very beginning it was going to be an uphill battle.
And we know that administration changes within municipalities, that who was the city person or the mayor 2 years ago is new people in. So one of the things that I reached out to Becky and her group to do was to start fresh. Now that it's been turnover in administration, to try again with new people that's coming in. So we're constantly reaching out and trying to, as we talked about the tax, because as you know, a lot of cities are hurting for funding. It's like, here's a way to get some revenue. So we trying to bank in on that conversation of them needing more revenue. So we have not given up on that. Nicole, are you there?
Yes, I am here.
Okay.
I don't really have too much to add. We opened up in December of 23, and we have been very lucky. We haven't had problems with zoning. We're in a very small county, very out of the way. We got a personal loan to get everything started, bought our building, and yeah, we just haven't really had any problems. We've been very blessed.
And what county are you in?
We are in Ferry County,
Okay.
way up in the middle of nowhere, up by Canada.
Okay. Okay.
Oh, so you have Canadians coming over.
Yes, we have had quite a few Canadians come in when they come down for recreational purposes.
Nice.
Okay. Did you want to say something?
Yeah. So, I mean, we've heard a lot about the challenges. Were there any successes? And I'll leave it to whoever wants to speak.
Comment not on my own, but like I think it's very common sense. We're talking about locations. It's always location as the best thing. And I've heard Lucky Leaf's name a couple times, seeing if they were here today. I talked to the owner of Lucky Leaf on the one in Pasco, the new one on 420. He told me he did $30,000 one day sales. Granted, it was on 420, but it just shows like it's if you're able to bring one of these businesses into a area that's not saturated or just a new area, it's just instant success. It's a no-brainer. So getting back to locations, the only way that the SCAs, I believe, we can have a leg up is for LCB to really drastically reduce, if not try to remove the buffer zones even through legislation. I don't want to sit there and say all the daycares and just remove them all, because clearly the public in a whole want to see some parameters. But I believe most of the cities, they took your guys' 1,000-foot buffer zones and just kind of like, well, that's what we're going to do. If you guys came out with a different buffer zone or spent some energy or monies towards telling them, hey, we completely or drastically changed the buffer zones. Again, I don't think any of these retail businesses should be treated any differently than a liquor store or a Safeway somewhere. I mean, we don't sell to minors, and to get that leg up we need, it needs to be either in a whole new location that just does not saturated with already existing businesses, or we need to some way have a chance at finding some locations that are more beneficial for a store to open up.
Thank you.
Oh, I want to say I think Paul's a success story. I want to give a shout out to him because he helped me through the process quite a bit. Like, he's been there taking me to these safety meetings and interchanges and introducing, and that was a super help. And to watch him grow and pass on knowledge to me that I've been able to pass on other social equity people. I think that's a huge success for all of us.
I think that's great. And I think that, and when you were mentioning, before getting your license, you worked in the industry and in someone else's store and helped. That it's good to see or hear that you all are talking to each other and trying to mentor each other with your sharing experience. That's really good to hear.
And I'm not going to sit here and say that when we opened, it wasn't successful. Like when we opened, it was successful the first month, second month. And then when the bigger companies around us was like, oh, they're getting too successful. Let me start telling these companies like, hey, if you guys gonna keep selling them, we ain't gonna pick you up no more. So, I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and say it wasn't, but you can see the numbers, how it was good the first 2 months, and then now it's just not good anymore.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Thank you all for that. Thank you. It gives us a lot to think about. Yeah. So what we're going to do next, because I've been getting a lot of emails and folks wanting to know about 5206, 5403, is to have Justin update us on what's going on, what to expect, and what those bills mean.
Sure. Good afternoon again, everyone. So our rules team has been hard at work on starting to draft. We got most of the rules open for the legislative implementation this year. By September, we'll have 15 rule projects open. And so there's a lot of work that's going on. And obviously, implementation of bills takes priority over some of the other rule development projects that we've had kind of sitting there. So the two that come to hand here are the advertising bill that passed and the management agreements. And those two, in some ways, kind of intertwine with one another as well because of some of the regulations that have come out in the management agreement particular bill. So what we heard from some folks around here. The exclusivity issues that people have been challenged with. So if you're having one retailer talking to somebody saying, "Hey, we're not going to buy from you if you sell to these other people," I think that part comes into some of that buying power type of concerns that have been raised. So a lot of folks have come out and said, "Hey, we've got more than 5 stores that are negotiating for sales. We've got purchasers who work for multiple businesses, et cetera." And then on the other end, you have the exclusivity type of, or exclusion, it's not exclusivity, but the exclusionary approach. And all of that kind of ties into undue influence. And so that's one of the things that we're looking at tackling in the rule project is, looking at it slightly beyond the 5. Obviously, we're writing rules to shore up what that looks like based on the statutory provisions that passed. But I think it goes beyond that when we're talking about, what stores can do for purchasing and those types of things. So one of the things that we had in liquor for a long time, primarily around beer, was uniform pricing. And so we could certainly take a look at, and this is where some of the conversation needs to come. We wouldn't set any prices, but we could certainly have regulations that would say that a processor has to offer the product at the same price to everybody under the same conditions. So, and that's still an early concept, but what would that look like? That way, when you're having folks trying to kind of go around some of the system issues for the negotiation of product, utilizing more stores, then that could certainly combat that particular piece as well. And so I think that there needs to be a number of layers that are built into this, not just saying, "Oh, you can't have more than 5 stores." There's a lot more to it than just that. And I think that the statute that was passed shored some of that up. So I think that when we're looking at those things, it's really going to be important to get your feedback on what kind of impact is that? Is that a positive? Is that a negative? I mean, we have producer, processors, and retailers all in as part of the system. And so what does that mean? So we can have that understanding before any type of policy is set. So as this continues to roll out, we really would like to have that feedback on some of those concepts. We'll be doing some stakeholder engagements in the near future on that, but I'll shift over into the advertising because there's a lot of concern around advertising components.
So sorry, before you move on, I just wanted to ask a clarifying question.
Yeah.
You're considering addressing minimum pricing as a part of the 5403 rulemaking?
Not minimum pricing, but like uniform pricing.
Or uniform
So
pricing?
people can't leverage multiple stores over other stores and have undue influence.
Okay,
in that
as a
matter.
part of that rulemaking?
Yeah, that's, I don't know if we'll be able to do that yet or not. We still have to look at some of the legal issues around. I mean, we could certainly back up and redefine the CR 101 to expand that, but we have to look at scope. And then we also, when we're talking about, we're implementing legislation, since that wasn't a mandatory piece of the legislation, but I think it ties into the intent of the legislation on how we're going to curb some of that market dominance and undue influence that's occurring. And so that's something that we need to look at. So none of this is set in stone yet, but these are early concepts that we're toying with. And that's why this is a really good time to get that feedback. Is what does this sound like to you all? Does that sound like a challenge, or does that sound like something that would be helpful, or any of those types of things?
I mean, I feel like that would help. I think, me being in here and pricing products as it comes in, these bigger stores that get the product, I mean, they might get the same product that we get at the same price, but I feel like their overhead is a little bit more. So they do a 4 or 5 times markup on it. They get mad at us because we don't have that big overhead. So we do a 3 times markup or a 2. So they thinking we're getting giving out bigger discounts, but if we are getting the same pricing, I mean, I don't know, but I get what you're saying, but that would help a lot too.
Yeah, I don't think we would go so far as to try to do minimum pricing within the store. But between the tiers, having that equal buying power, because we've seen this in liquor too. Some of the small stores in the remote areas, we have distributors that don't want to deliver to those, and they're struggling too, saying, "Hey, wait a second, I'm forced to go through a distributor. So if I don't get a distributor in my area to actually deliver, what does that mean for me?" Right? You guys are kind of saying something similar here, and so that's what we need to look at, is some of the back end policies around these, and what can we do to help facilitate that equity in the purchasing power and accessibility to product and those types of things.
Well, I think it'd be a major challenge. I mean, for one, any of the big guys that are selling to retailers, where they're like kind of just more ties with, they can simply change it up by saying, it was a C bud versus a B bud or A bud, meaning like the size of the bud. Same thing. They could say the date of harvest. They can switch it up from a jar to a mylar. One of the difference between the liquor and cannabis is liquor, I believe, is a lot more commoditable good, where it has that shelf life and that percentage never changes. It's always going to be the same, 40 proof or 80 proof, whatever. But when it comes to these grows, the simple fact, needing to get a crop out and then setting a price to where they cannot then move that crop, or the same thing, just simply switch a branding label to something else, and then all those retailers can just simply say, yeah, we do have some this brand here, but if you buy it under this brand, it's 30% cheaper. Like, that'll be quickly navigated that way, no problem. And again, just for the simple fact, flour itself, whoever wants to disagree, it's just not a commodity good. It's not always the same. It's not going to be Mott's applesauce every single time. You got to always look at it. You got to always look at the percentage, and it's always going to be different. And because of that and the short shelf life, I feel like that's just going to be the biggest challenge that you can try to tackle that.
Sure, I appreciate that. I think when we're thinking about this, maybe there's other ways of looking at it. Again, we have to look at what we could actually establish based on court cases in the past and stuff on how some of these pricing components work. But you could do like a price post and hold kind of a thing and say, okay, so you have degradable product. So when you set your price, it has to be that same price for everybody for 30 days. And then you can change the price. And then you post that new price or whatever the case may be for that particular SKU or whatever. I mean, that could be one strategy to look at to try to even that out a little bit. But I get what you're saying, that there's definitely variables that you can advertise your products at a different levels of not only value, but quality and those types of things.
Because most of all these big producer processors, if they don't have one brand, they have 12 brands now. So like, unless it's going to be watched over everything that goes out through all the brands, really watching from the flower grow itself to see where that then gets redistributed, and then see like small batches of those to keep going to the same people. Like, the only way to even try to get on top of even that, still having to watch like everything that comes out across all the brands, and then it gets even deeper to who they want to wholesale some of their goods to a different producer processor than to circumvent that as well. So that's definitely a tough challenge.
Yeah, that's good stuff to think about. And again, we're at the beginning phases of some of those type of ideas, so that's really valuable for us to have that. Other comments or questions yet around the agreement piece, and then I'll move into the advertising piece.
I wouldn't mind weighing in on this conversation.
And this is where we all weigh in now.
So I agree that a lot of the conversation today around what I would put into a broad category of unfair trade practices, of which there are a great deal that have been discussed. So there's trying to shut people out of access to either shelf space or to product. There's pricing, there's illegal pricing coordination. There's buying for more than the licenses are allowed. There's also unfair trade practices on the producer side that haven't been brought up yet, one of which is overproduction, especially in the context of outdoor farms, which has been a significant ongoing problem for the entirety of 502. And so one of the things that we can now do is look around the rest of the country and see what else is going on. And we need to look to what New York's doing with their fair, I think it's called Fair and Trade Practices Division within their Office of Cannabis Management. And so what that division there is doing is taking all of the stuff that we're talking about here, the difficulties of pricing a non-commodity product in a fair way, because you can't just do a set and hold with something that is so variable and so short, degrading. So those are great points that Paul brought up. So what this organization within OCM in New York is doing is they're putting forward guidance out on all of these issues to say, like, these are the things that are allowed and not allowed in the context. They're getting quite specific. And that's allowing us, or the equivalent of us in New York, to self-regulate in ways that we've been asking for a decade. Because one of the problems we run into is when we try to have conversations with our peers about what's allowed and what's not allowed, because so many practices are implicitly allowed by non-enforcement or without clarity from the agency, we can't really get clarity and understanding within our own community about what's allowable and what's not allowable. And that creates these situations where, which has really been the story of I-502, is the people that are willing to go the farthest, to break the rules the most, the earliest, have succeeded. And so now we're left in a situation where all of the most successful people, not all of the most successful people, but a lot of the most successful people got there because they were willing to push the limits of the rules and create new practices that when we started were explicitly disallowed, but then somehow became allowed throughout the years. And so without any sort of real intentionality on the state's part to enforce fair trade practices, be really forward thinking and communicative about what that means, which has never been something we've gotten, we can't even begin to address any of these issues in a coherent way, in my opinion. And so I think we need to take and this has, been one of the core things I brought up for the decade of my being here and doing this, is like fair market access, fair trade practices is key to a limited license market. It will not work unless that's done well, and it has never been done well. And it really needs to be a core focus of the state, both the agency, the attorney general, the governor's office. We have a new governor who used to be the AG, who happens to be an expert in trade practices. And I've yet to see much from, Bob Ferguson's office engaging on this issue in any way whatsoever. And so I'll just say that I hope somebody from Bob Ferguson's office is watching this. And I would say, like, this is a great opportunity to take the reins of a narrative about antitrust, about fair markets, about trade practices in a market that was constituted by the state of Washington. It did not exist previously. Everything we're allowed to do was dictated to us by the state. All of our practices were a result of responses to policy. So there's a level of responsibility that the state of Washington has for the result of this situation that they've never been willing to take on. And that's why none of this is working as well as it could be. And so we need in my opinion, a relentless focus on what it means to have a limited license market. That's a monopoly, right? I only have one business type that I can sell my product to. So Washington State licensed retailer. There's a lot of them, but together they constitute a state monopoly. There's responsibilities under the Sherman Act, no relation, and other antitrust acts that exist that I don't know about, the legality of whether it applies to the state market because we're not a national market, but the principles of those bills that control commerce throughout the country that don't work particularly well, even when they are applied, are not being applied at all in this industry. And we're suffering tremendously. And the idea that we're going to have people that come without the resources and with the disadvantages of what came with the social equity licensing process, that we're going to put people in that situation into a completely dysfunctional market that barely works for the people that have been in it for a decade and be like, good luck. It's always been a difficult thing, in my opinion, to say we were, doing a good thing. I know the intention of it was good, but the reality of it was mixed. And I think we've seen that now with only a fraction of these stores being open and a lot of them really struggling. So fair trade practices, comprehensive, thoughtful, ecosystem-based analysis of what's going on. All of these issues intersect and play together. And there's not going to be a scattershot approach of this idea and that idea. It needs to be a core focus of regulating cannabis in Washington, because even post-federal legalization, all of these same issues of market access, distribution, who gets to control the flow of product to whom, who gets to sell what to whom, how is the market access? These are all issues that are going to be relevant for us for decades. And without really comprehensive strategy on it, I don't think we're going to be able to solve these issues. Thanks.
And then I'll sort of add in there too, 100% agree with everything you just said, Micah. And not only that, but also taking into consideration an overall philosophy of how we intend to do that. In other words, is the intention here to continue to create further regulations, to fix the regulations that aren't working so that we're regulating upon regulating in a way that then I think starts to choke the market down. And some of this is legislative, it can't be done here. I think that monopoly in particular, we need to be looking for ways to, without expansion, allow this economy to work more openly and more freely, more ways to engage, more ways to market, and only through continuing to look for ways to actually lift some of the regulation while enforcing more meaningful regulation is how we get there, because making more rules on top of the rules, I think, is how we choke this to death. And we're almost there anyways.
So that's actually a good segue into the advertising piece.
Sure.
Because that particular bill, 5206, has a number of added regulations. So a lot of folks thought that this is going to lift some of the regulations. There were some late amendments, and now we have actually added regulations that weren't there before. And so we're going to be like shifting some of the oversight of the size of signage to local governments for trade names and billboards. And that's pretty much the only thing that goes over to local governments. We still maintain all of the content and those types of things, but the advertising provisions increased from 2 advertising signs to 4 advertising signs. But the trade names, now that you still have about the same as before, but now they have to be on the front of your building where the main entrance is only. And that's what the statute did. And so we're trying to navigate some of these other changes on, okay, how does this impact the rollout and implementation? And there's one piece in here that actually has some contradictory language. And so when you look at that from a statutory standpoint, you have to take the new and more specific over the old, but at the same time, it's both in the same area. And so we're going to be trying to look at how we can clarify the language around some of those components so that it's not quite as much of a struggle on the back end for folks. But there's definitely going to be a lot of additional components, and there's stuff around the brand names, trade names, and the types of signage. And then they put in provisions around stuff that's not advertising that is creating some confusion. So when they're talking about, oh, you can have a sign of under 512 square inches that has basically no business, other than like open hours of operation, those types of things. It's not really an advertisement. So they're saying that's not advertising. But if it's not advertising, then is it really a sign, limit? Because we don't deal with stuff that's not actually cannabis advertising. So those types of things, we're going to have to do a lot of clarification, and we're going to need a lot of input from stakeholders on, is this approach going to work? And we'll hear from a lot of different stakeholders in this, and we've got a lot of emails both on the advertising and the management agreement so far after opening up the rural projects. And there's a lot of concerns being shared around some of these things. And so, I think there's some misperceptions because early on, some of the shift was going to be size and count. They don't have the count, so we still have your count limitations under the LCB. So there's just a number of pieces that are going to be coming out, and then trying to make sure that we educate the locals on what that means. So, people have had questions on, well, what's the difference between a billboard and a trade name sign? Well, we could potentially put it as a positional thing because your trade name sign now has to be on the front of your building, or it can be in a pylon or monument sign out in the strip mall, kind of a standard. But you can't have stuff all around your building anymore. You can't have stuff on fences and those types of things. So there's actually a lot more regulation. And I think we're going to get some reaction when the first set of rules come out, because people are going to be like, why are you putting more regulations in? And it's actually the bill that did that. So if folks want more fixes around that, that'll have to be some legislative tasks. I just want to manage some expectations around that, because it's not going to be the LCB driving some of those added restrictions. It's what we have that was handed to us. And so we've got, a number of different things, and I'll talk about one component here that is going to end up being confusing, and that is in the old regulations, if you had a sign that was outward facing from inside your window. So it didn't have to be on the window, but it's outward facing from the window, and that was considered an advertisement. The new bill actually says if it's visible from the public right away, it's considered advertising. So does that mean if you can fully see something? Does that mean if it's right up against the window or in the back of the store, which we've seen some pictures around, almost like a border around the top of the ceiling, so you can see it from, far away, and it's big, but it's in the store. So how does that kind of stuff play out? And what if it's, supposed to be incidental from inside the store? We've also had questions around, well, what if you open the door and there's, stuff that's right there now that you can see it from the public right away, but when the door closes, it's not there. I mean, those seem like little, stupid things, but that's where the complaints come in. And we have to figure out what all that looks like and have it be clear. So particularly folks who are starting new businesses aren't struggling with what is all of this stuff that now we have to figure out how to navigate. So again, a lot of feedback is going to be needed as we start looking at this. And we're really going to have to take a close look at the statutory provisions that just came out because there are added regulations. When we first were floating ideas around advertising, we were actually trying to deregulate some of the stuff, but that's not where this ended up. But if folks have concerns or something you're seeing with related to advertising that you want us to be thinking about or consider, or if you have any questions that I can cover on that. But when we're talking about like advertising trade names and going into management agreements, there are components in there around utilization of trade names. We also have DOR laws that govern the use of trade names. And so there's a lot of layers to this between the multiple bills and other statutes and other agencies that people will register a trade name with the Department of Revenue, Secretary of State. There's not necessarily a provision in those areas that prohibit the use of the same trade name of two stores that are totally unrelated. And so we need to figure out what that looks like because the management agreement bill talks about some of that. So as we're diving into some of these issues, it's going to be really important to look at those small details. But I see a couple hands.
Well, this is not.
Oh, I thought there were online participants.
In listening to this, and then for you all that are new, that has come into the industry, and what you're hearing here today, and there's going to be some changes with the signage and different things. But I also heard where you all are not full-time involved on this, you got jobs and other things. Do you feel like the information when we talk about what's coming and changes that could be made or things that's going to impact you, that you all are getting that knowledge timely? Or is there something we could do or recommendations? And that's where we can roll into enforcement and education to say when changes come about, what we're talking about with the signs, if you all are not able to be at these listen and learns, and then even with the outcome of what that's gonna look like, how are you feeling about that? And getting that information and making sure you're in compliance.
I mean, we all get the emails. We see it. There's
Okay.
a lot, and a lot of it does look Greek. You know, you have to kind of really decide it. Well, what is this one about? And can I survive without knowing it? And you know, will my enforcement officer just show up and tell me later? You know? So, like, do you guys blast out? You know, which ones are like should be more important to us? No, it all looks the same. So, I mean, you know. We each have to do a lot of kind of reading the thumbnails or the titles and, you know, try to see if it's something you want to read. And then if you do click on it, it still comes out Greek. You still don't know really exactly what you're reading sometimes.
Great.
So, I mean, there could be, you know, probably a better way to have like two versions of saying the same thing instead of just the legislative verbiage, I guess, might make it easier. I don't say, you know, dumb it down for people like myself, but you know, when it all looks the same and nothing's standing out, then you know anything's different. And when you do click on it, it's just this long of you got to make sure you read all the way through to maybe catch what you wanted to see. And then at the same time, we discuss a lot of things that we think are going to, like the signage, for instance, and then how it gets to legislation for them to then sign, stamp it, and then say, well, then it added a lot more things. Like, I guess that's probably the most, you know, annoying thing about any of this is we have all this long study talking period, and then the last minute before it gets passed through, no one really knows what's going to pass through, and then what passes through is always different than everything we were all discussing before it goes through. So it's like, I don't know if that's by plan or what, but you know, until that changes, it's hard to take everything that we're discussing serious just to know after 5 years what comes up on the other side is completely opposite of what we were discussing. So like a lot of that happens, I feel.
Well, I would agree with some of that too, because on the back end, when we get the bill at the end of the day, and we've been telling folks, hey, this is what this bill's gonna do, and then it doesn't, then people are like, well, you didn't tell me the right information. But because it came out differently. And so we have some similar frustrations around that too.
And I think, for the portion of what your enforcement officer can share with you or what a compliance consultant can share with you on education, you said something in the beginning of your comments about more meaningful regulation. It's going to start with the rules process. It's going to start with the stakeholder and the collaboration process. What the enforcement officers or the compliance consultants are doing when they get to your store or when they're working with you should be the end result of good rulemaking or good communication and collaboration versus you finding out at the point of the pen that you've got a violation or a possible warning. With both the advertising bill and with both the true party or the management agreements bill, I think it's going to be very important for you all to share with Justin and with our team what that looks like for you, like some of the things we just heard here, what the financial agreements look like, what some of the marketing agreements look like. Our officers, when they arrive at your store or when they're taking a complaint, they're really working with the rules they're given. They're really working with the rules that were either developed or the RCWs. You don't have an officer who has the ability to say, well, what you've explained to me does sound like it's clearly illegal and I'm going to be able to take action. They have to do some investigation. And I can understand where that would be more frustrating for you. Sharing with us what it looks like. The signage, I think, is one that board member Gary and I were talking about before this meeting started. We recognize that there are larger dispensaries who are taking advantage of the signage rules. They're taking advantage of some of the other marketing rules. We need to be aware of that. We need to be able to deal with it. But at the same time, we are prioritizing some of the more public safety related issues while the rulemaking process is taking place. With rulemaking being open, we've been contacted about signage. We've been contacted about marketing or management agreements. We investigate those. We look into those. But some of the actions you won't see until after we solidify those rules. Please don't stop sharing with us how it's impacting you, though. Please let our officers and our compliance consultants know, because that feeds into the process when we're working internally and when we're working in the stakeholder sessions.
Yeah, I mean, with the signage thing that we're talking about, to me, I'm just like, okay, we're talking about signage. Yet my neighbors around me at this store have these big billboards and this big trade name around the whole big store that they got. And so when we tried to get a big sign, our LCB was like, nope, can't even do it. And I'm not going to sit here and say, well, if you walk outside and look to your right, how come they get to get it? But I mean, he sees it. So, I mean, if you guys got something coming up for the future for how we could get the same sign, or I don't know if they're grandfathered in or what the rule is on that.
No, there's not going to be any grandfathering on either of the bills. And so we were looking at January 1, sorry. January 1 is the effective date. And so, we've been encouraging people on both fronts to start implementing and making changes now, because come January 1, it's been, 6 to 8 months after session. And so if people are just starting to make changes, then that's going to be problematic for them. But as far as the size of those signs go, we'll deal with the location based on how the statute's written, but the size is all going to be local government. So if the local jurisdiction, has some conditions or parameters, then that's what you would have to follow. And some, may have a historic district, for example, that they don't allow certain types of sizes of signs, whereas other parts of their city, they're more flexible. So that's all going to shift over, which will create some confusion in some points, because if you're going through, let's say Vancouver, and then you go over up to Battleground, and you've got two different types of regulations, you're going to see some differences in signs, particularly around size. So content, we control that. We want to make sure that it's very clear that people understand what that looks like, not only for licensees, because you guys spend a lot of money on your signs. We don't want you to put up a sign and then we're like, no, that's not right. That's a terrible interaction with us. So we want to make sure that everything is very clear on the front end, which kind of goes to one of the points Micah was sharing on the other conversation. if you can think of workarounds to how the language is, that's really helpful for us to know during the rule process, so we can try to fix that. Because we're not going to see everything. That's not something that we have a crystal ball for. So we really want to encourage that feedback.
I think the other thing I did want to put out, the compliance consultants are part of our education program. The compliance consultants are there to ask these questions when you feel like it's on the fringe, but you don't want to ask an officer because you're concerned about a citation. Let that compliance consultant know there should be a compliance consultant assigned to each one of your areas. And if there isn't, then the supervisor, the education program supervisor and program manager can get in touch with you. We have an advertising specialist who can assist with that, who can do consultation with you and look at what you have questions about or concerns about and provide that feedback ahead of time, especially when you're reading something that looks like Sanskrit and you're trying to figure out exactly what it is that the education or that the rule or the policy says. That consultant is there. They will come and see you. Our program manager will contact you and try to work with you to help build understanding. And that's also where we get feedback on what's not clear. That's also where we get feedback on things that you're seeing that we may not know that need to be part of the rule or the policy.
My comment was real specific to your question about the communication. I just wanted to give an example. An email went out day before yesterday about CCRS, and a lot of licensees didn't get that email because I think it went to like a tech email list and not a licensee email list. And there's like different things you can sign up for. And so like that was a really important communication that should have gone to like all licensees, but I think only went to like a subsection. And there are some times where that happens where what I was going to say is it might be good to think about, like, I know we have primary contacts on the license. It might be good to have like those kind of emails not go out to like just the broad people that have signed up for the emails, but say, and maybe even highlight in the subject line that like it's an email to the licensees about a specific thing that we need to know about versus a general announcement about a policy change, because that would help us like decipher which emails we like really have to read and which ones are more general information. So just
Like you say, like an alert title or something like alert.
yeah, like this is like a licensee action email or
Call to action.
yeah, or just like something that's because we all put up, and then a lot of us, just to put into context, like put our original email address that we had for our license like before we had a business. So it's like a personal Gmail account that maybe we don't use anymore, and making sure that that's like the freshest email in your system could help with that too. Because I know like for us, we struggled for a while to change that and eventually figured it out, but it was.
Well, just for us, for this group, and for reaching out even to the social equity group.
Yeah.
Folks that I didn't get the email. Well, we sent the email here, and then I use that like you just described. That's what I was using before I opened my business. But now my email is this. But in our system, they're not updated. So Gretchen and I going through this, we kept coming up with different emails and it was.
Yeah, no, it's a challenge. So like I don't know, maybe like a effort to update some of those databases and have like the sort of licensee specific communication be a little bit different in structure than the email blast. That was all I was adding.
Ask to putting on my comms and marketing hat that I technically don't have at LCB anymore, but I still wear. Is there another format beyond emails that would be valuable? Like if there was a standing, hey, this just changed update at all board meetings where there's like a verbal communication, or if there's, like you were saying, everything looks like Greek. If there was like a 1 minute long video explaining policy changes I like the way you said like the official government speak, and then okay, let's make it real and let's say what we really mean. That's Justin. Half my check-ins with him are like, okay, tell me the version I can understand. So that sort of like video style content, like are there other ways that it would be helpful for LCB to communicate to you all beyond the like standard one more email in your inbox?
You'll notice for the social equity applicants, we actually have a blog. And so if there was something important, and probably not everybody knows this, if there was something important that we wanted to communicate, we blogged it. Like we wanted you to know, like this was happening, this was changing, this was coming up. And we didn't do it every week or we did it as things happened, that we wanted to make sure that you rose to like, okay, this I need to know. That way you didn't have to go out to your email. You could just go on and see what was blogged. I don't know we had a lot of hits. People found that to be helpful. Not sure that everybody did, but certainly we haven't used that in any other space other than for social equity applicants, because we have somebody always manning that.
Is the newsletter a good tool for folks to get some of that information? I know it's not, monthly, but we could put in kind of a quick blurb on here's what changed, in Plain Talk It or something like that. I don't know if that's a medium that people would look at for that type of information.
I think a newsletter would probably be great. That would have links to the things that we need to find information from. I will say like the one pager for sampling was really helpful and good. I handled that a lot. So I'm gonna give you all kudos for that. And then I think the blog, I've referenced a lot of those blog posts, and it's in a lot of cases the only place where some of that information exists. So it's really helpful. I do think the Medium platform is a little bit clunky, and sometimes when you're trying to look for searching it when you start at the LCB website and then to get to the blog post on Medium is a long walk and not direct. And so I think there's some challenges there. I don't know how to solve those. So sorry, I don't have a solution for you. But the content that's in those blogs is really helpful.
Just start a TikTok, I guess.
Larry, you were gonna touch on labs?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the final thing, and there has been a good bit of communication from a newsletter back in March on the labs. There's some concern about testing. There was some concern or questions about whether or not we changed the rules of the policy, the WAC on 314-55-102 on what were required testing, and then the category of something called R&D testing. Understanding there was some concern from the labs, which kind of cascades and impacts you all. There were some concerns from the labs on whether or not there were test results that were listed under a category called R&D that were required for reporting that weren't being reported, and it impacted the industry, the complete industry. Labs were pretty concerned that because this new testing requirement they felt was a new testing requirement was going to impact them, maybe even decertify labs, that it would cascade to the industry. We are working with the labs, the statewide labs, on that process, both on all testing requirements under RCW and under WAC, to make sure that everybody is of the same mind and of the same understanding for what's required. There has been no change in the 14 years that it's been in place. And then also working with the labs to get post-dated tests that were done before the March newsletter added to the system. And we've taken a graduated enforcement posture with that. There are labs who were concerned that possibly if they didn't get all of these samples in or all of these sample results in, that they would be decertified or they would be fined. We're working with them on incrementally getting the post-dated samples in. There is still a requirement. We need to make sure that anything tested after March is in the system because it impacts products that are in your stores or it impacts products that are in the market. But we are working with them. It's a month by month, week by week, and sometimes day by day step. But we've done that in order to make sure that we don't cause any additional fluctuations in the market. We hope to see this done by the end of the summer, but we're continuing to working through the fall to get that touched. I know many labs still reach out to the board. They're still reaching out to us on what enforcement looks like for this. What it looks like is continued incremental improvement and continuing to communicate with us on what your concerns are on getting results in, and we'll continue to work with those labs.
Any conversation?
I have some clarifying questions
Sure.
about that. So you described it as R&D testing. I've also heard non-mandatory testing.
Right.
We talked about it within our association as non-mandatory testing. Is it your position that all testing, if it goes through a licensed cannabis lab, is considered mandatory testing?
In accordance with the WAC, go ahead, Justin.
And we don't need to litigate this
No,
here.
no,
I think
no, we
what I'd
won't.
like to kind of get to though, is just, I want to call out on the record here in this space that there is rulemaking to clarify
Yeah,
exactly
exactly.
this, right? There is 10 years of history where this testing has not been asked for.
Sure.
There has been things on the website indicating that there is some testing that is not mandatory. I just want to sort of provide some.
Now, I'm
some
gonna skate out
preliminary
and
to
be
this
nice, and Justin will jump in for sure.
Yeah, and I would
Um,
really love the opportunity for the
Sure.
rulemaking process to play itself out
Definitely.
before we're making claims about rules that are just
Sure.
unclear at this
Yeah,
point.
for the mandatory testing, the 314-55-102 testing that has always been required, those things still remain a required reporting test. There are multiple tests that the labs conduct that don't fall into that category, and we don't want to confuse anyone. So when you've heard the term non-mandatory testing, I think some of the labs also rolled R&D testing into that. Don't want to say what their rationale was or speak to what that may be. But our position is still that anything that was listed in the RCW as a required mandatory test, we need to see results for. Just
Yeah, essentially, and this is why we have the position and nothing's changed, because the test, the reporting is the same tests. And so, for example, if you're doing one of the 7 or 8 tests, we expect that to be in the system. If you're doing something like terpenes, we don't care, right? That's not a mandatory test. So I think what happened was some of the folks, they started saying, well, we're going to mark this as R&D, which isn't a thing in rule. And then they're classifying that as, well, this isn't mandatory testing because I'm calling it something different. But if it's still pesticide testing, that needs to go into the system. If it's not one of those required ones, it never has needed to go in. And whether how that was communicated, we recognize there could be some other communication issues, but from a policy position, that hasn't changed.
Sure, and in that whack, and I'm no lawyer, I don't want to be in a position with arguing with either of you about this, but there's a schedule, like, it's not just a type, but a when, not just what. And I believe that that's what the rulemaking is about. And again, like, that's, I think it is our hope that we allow that rulemaking process to happen, so that enforcement isn't occurring prior to clarity on that rulemaking.
Yeah, and just to touch on that particular rule project, it's not going to be just around that issue, because we were planning on doing R&D issues based on the comments we heard in the sampling regulations. And so we've got producers and processors that they want to do true R&D. We haven't made this product before. We're trying these things out. Does this work? Does it not? They want to do some true R&D testing. And so we wanted to build that in so the sampling provisions could actually extend in a different direction for those types of samples as well. And so there's multiple facets to what is being called R&D that we need to address,
And
because there's nothing in.
remediation will probably play into this. We know that there has also been some confusion around enforcement regarding what is a part of just the concentrating process and ensuring that solvents are, that are necessary for that process are not in the end product versus remediation. And then even are our rules around remediation really sensible anymore now that we're 10 years into this? And
doing a pretty good job for not being a lawyer.
It is my job, but I'm not
Sure.
not that deep in. But
No, I will say the one thing you mentioned, enforcement while the rules are being done. So we are continuing to enforce the required tests, the same ones that are listed in the RCW. And that comment about anything tested that shows those contaminants that are required, we do look for that when we go to the labs. We will continue to enforce that. We will continue to work with the labs when we see that reporting. But now that we are beyond the education window where we've shared with all the labs what those requirements are, we do expect to see that for the new tests. We are continuing to work with them on incrementally getting those old tests in. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
Just as a process question here. So one of the things we test for in Washington State, which we're the only state that tests for this particular class of microbes, it's called gram-negative coliform bacteria that's on there. So a number of biopesticides that are usable in cannabis are they're that being. So it's like a biological pesticide that is applied. And so, like, are you guys saying that somebody that uses a product like that would send it to the lab to check if that is dead before they test it for real? Because that's how it happens, right? This entity that we apply dies after a certain amount of time, but because Washington tests for that particular thing where other states don't, we have to like make sure that it's dead before we test it. Are you saying that if we did that and it failed, that would be reported as a failure?
Yes, as under the current regulations. And so I think that that's a fair point to bring up in the conversation around this because we've looked at, what should remediation be around pesticide issues? And we've looked at other states and nobody really allows remediation of pesticides. But if you're talking about, a different type that's going to die off because it's a biopesticide.
Right, it's not a pesticide.
Then maybe we need to have that conversation on how do we clarify what these are? Because if it shows up in something and there is an opportunity to have it dissipate, get rid of it, whatever, then we need to have that discussion. But right now on pesticide testing, there's no remediation allowed.
Yeah, this is a microbial question, I guess, more than anything. And that sort of
grams.
Hmm?
Lost me at grams. But no, I
But no,
definitely think we have to
those are
continue
the
conversation for sure, though.
Yeah, because that's like, I know one thing that got brought up in the context of this conversation is that, like, just say it, like, I use that biopesticide and like my lab knows that I use it. And so when they're doing testing, they take that into account into their testing. And if like, then that I think is the sort of thing that isn't necessarily the intention of what you're going for here, but it is something important to think about where we don't want to be like, encouraging
but if you don't want
people
that
away
in,
from safe
if you
products.
don't want that in the end product, then we probably would need to look at, so if it does test hot, maybe that's not a quote unquote failure like we traditionally thought of, but it's a flag to say this can't move into the market because it's in the product, right? So if it's a naturally biodegrading, then we need to be thinking about how that looks instead of we're not seeing any test results because somebody thinks it failed. And we've had product that is used under that R&D scope go to market, and if it's not clean product, then that methodology is being used as a workaround. And, we've talked about workarounds in other areas. And so that's something
Well, I
that
think
we
the
need to be
implication that it's not a clean product. That's like for the thing I'm talking about. But just to clarify
good,
that, I mean, there's a reason why no other states test for it because it's not a thing that matters, but we do.
shoot me an email on that so I have that
I will.
technical piece because I'm not going to remember.
Yeah, I mean, I brought it up a bunch during the testing changes and it got missed in that era, but it would be a nice thing to.
Well, I mean, the good news I will share is, we have 3 chemists in the division on the team who work with the labs, who follow this, who will probably be able to educate us just as much as you will on it. So please just share that information. We'll get it to Dr. Trumbull and the rest of the team and continue to work on it. So great.
Okay, so what I want to do is, before I get to the directors come in and we're actually keeping up on schedule, is to say this is the first meeting. And what I want to do going forward for the meetings, they will be all virtual. It would just be myself and Will, not the other board members, so it doesn't have to be open to the public meeting. But what I want is to hear from you all what you want. I don't want to have a meeting where staff is just reporting out. I want to have a meeting where you all have gone back, talked to the industry, talked to your members, and are bringing to us feedback, recommendation, what's going on, where LCB can help. I want the meetings to be more target to where if there needs to be one meeting where it's a target conversation on something that's going on hot in the industry that you all are hearing and that's being brought to you to say, this is what we need to talk about. So Gretchen will be sending out emails to say for agenda items or topics and things that you would like for these meetings to be about and discussion. And from there, we set who needs to be here. Somebody brought up commerce. If there's a meeting where we feel like we need to bring commerce in to have some type of discussion, if there's a meeting where we need to bring, and I'm just throwing stuff out there, public health, whatever these topics, and bringing in the right people and to have target conversations and things, not everybody in the agency reporting out. and we're not hearing and accomplishing anything, I don't believe in meeting just to meet. So that's what I would like for you all to think about. When the next, we haven't set when the next meeting would be, but to make it to where we're not meeting just to meet, that they are constructive conversations that we're having and meeting on those conversations. Is there anything else anyone wants to share today or talk about today?
So I'll just make a quick comment because I know people expect to see some stuff this time of year. Usually I'll send out draft legislation. We're not presenting any agency request legislation this year. So if you haven't seen anything, that's why. I wanted folks to be aware.
And just wanted to make a recommendation. I see that we've got the advisory council members and then there were guests here today. Contemplate maybe adjusting their, I think two of the organizations got 2 representatives and maybe we all get 1. And then consider possibly a patient representative and then specifically a social equity representative to fill those 2 other spots on that permanent council.
Right. And we can do that. And the only reason it bumped up to 2, because when you all pushed forward who it was going to be, there was no one from retail.
Yeah, and I'm not worried about
Right.
how it ended up for
Right.
today.
Yeah.
But maybe moving forward, if we've got a little bit more time and now we've
Right.
got all the right emails and all of
Right.
that,
Right.
we might want to consider adjusting who's on that permanent council to have a little bit of a broader perspective.
And you're right. So someone representing social equity, because I don't think everyone is part of an association. Yeah, from the sound of it, and we'll see what the outcome is. It sounds like Paul Bryce has been doing a good job of representing social equity and being a mentor and helping and things. I'm not volunteering anybody, but I just threw that out there where we have social equity folks in the room. Do you all vote for Paul Bryce?
Well, because there's such a difference between the east side and the west side, I will say maybe it would benefit social equity to have an east side representative and a west side.
Okay. Okay. So you all have heard that. I think that maybe there's 3 or 4 that's not on the call today. If someone want to shoot me an email of who from the west side, east side to represent you all, shoot me that email.
Did the Association of Cities get invited to this? No. That'd be the worst idea in the world, one of them.
I mean, is that something, I don't know.
That's the kind of thing.
Right, is that something that could work for an agenda item? Those are the type of things we want to hear. Yeah, and would they come? Yeah,
We can reach out and see.
yeah, we can reach out and see. Yeah. Yes. Any other suggestions, recommendations? Your thoughts?
I actually love that idea, and it would be great to maybe talk about some of, even though the things are happening legislatively. I know we have a lot of overlap, obviously, from our perspective, and I know a lot of licensees are really interested in looking at the cannabis hospitality or social consumption legislation. We've had lots of conversations with you all over the years about that, but cities and counties in particular would be great to include in a conversation like that in a setting here. Like what are the ways that this could actually function? We know that that's a legislative lift, but we're watching other states like Massachusetts where it's actually a regulatory lift, not a legislative one. And so we'd love to have that topic.
Yeah, I think it would be a great conversation in the fall as those legislative, agendas get set to bring that to this group. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I also wonder if there are situations in which bringing other states to have conversations. Like I know that you were talking about with if New York is doing something that we could, bring in or have, talk about. what they're doing and how we might adapt it here. I think they could provide some different perspectives.
I think this is the first time that somebody has said, look at what New York's doing in a positive way. But it sounds fantastic.
Or like with the pesticides, I know Oregon has 2 pesticides, also bio pesticides that they remediate. So potentially talking with them about that.
I think that that's an allowable organic pesticide. That's not a biopesticide. I'm pretty sure I know what you're talking about. Slightly different things. But yeah.
Okay, Will, any closing comments?
You know what? I just want to take the opportunity to thank all the social equity licensees for being willing to share their challenges and their successes. And I jotted down some notes so that we can continue the conversation. Great conversation today. I look forward to the additional conversations.
Holly, Bethany, that's her.
Bethany?
Hi, thank you. One thing I would say, I do feel like there's no lab representation on here. And I do feel like maybe, not social equity, but, minority owned lab, like Medicine Creek maybe would be a great addition that would kind of bring some, different perspective from a tribal perspective, as well as just a lab perspective. So that's just a suggestion for me that I think would add to the discussion here. And then I did speak with Rolando, which Rolando can speak for himself as well, but I think he'd be interested in potentially offering an East Side position for social equity. And I feel like, as an independent operator, I think they bring a lot of value in their input. But I really appreciate this whole discussion. It's been fantastic. Really nice to have clarity around a lot of things and just clarity on the 2 rulemaking for signage and management agreements. Membership is very keen on providing input, and you guys will be hearing from us.
Okay. I got that written down. So lab, bringing someone in, okay, delivery, okay. We
Amber
will,
from Madison Creek is already on here.
oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah, Bethany, she hasn't said anything, but Amber is here and on the council. She just hasn't talked.
Oh, okay, great, awesome. I just wanted to make sure that there was lab on the council.
Yeah, I thought that we saw that we had lab, we had everything but retail at one point. Yes, okay. With that said, the meeting is adjourned and thank you all.
Jolly.
Oh, she was on the